Hi, this is Coach Dan Williams with Character Advantage. In today's world, artificial intelligence has captured our attention. It's on our phones, it's on our computers. Every industry is having to adapt to the use of artificial intelligence, including sport. There's one thing that artificial intelligence will never be able to do. It will never be able to understand the nuance of the human heart. And I'm not talking about the physical heart. I'm talking about the human spirit. Because when it comes to competition, we see constantly how humans are just irrational. Now, a lot of times that behavior is demonstrated through poor behavior, the irrational action that's taken in a moment where someone's lost their head and they've just done something foolish. But we also see irrational human behavior as times in which a change is made in a game that just doesn't make sense, or an athlete's done something that is just irrational. It's not what would be required or expected in that moment. They just went off script and it was a moment of brilliance. And so there is a part of being human that just makes us unique from anything that we could ever create artificially. And when we think about humans and we think about the human history, there's one thing that has been with humans from the very beginning. And it's how we communicate and how we pass on wisdom and information. And we've done it through a very simple medium. We've done it through the medium of storytelling. Now, when I first realized that I wasn't taking full advantage of storytelling was back in 2020. I began to realize that this was something that I could begin to do as a coach. And I began to realize that as a coach and as a parent, I wasn't fully utilizing the power of storytelling to connect with the heart of my athlete. And so that's when I began to really take storytelling seriously. Now, I could tell you the very first stories that I told, I was nervous, I wasn't sure what I was doing, and my players were looking at me a little weird. But I pressed through and I got better and better. And as I've looked back over the years, on average, I've told about 200 stories a year for the last 5 years. And I've learned a lot about storytelling in the context of sport. And one of the things that I've learned is that your story must stick. Now, what does STICK stand for? It stands for your story has to shape the attitude that you're intending to shape. So you need to know the attitude that you're trying to address. So you have to find a story that is going to shape that attitude. Then you need to be able to make sure that your story is teaching a takeaway. So it's got to be something simple that the athlete can take away from the story. And I stands for you've got to influence their attention. You got to capture their attention. You have to take the influence you have and really leverage it to capture their attention through the story. And then C stands for connecting with the athlete's heart. You've got to connect with their heart. You've got to really make sure that story connects well with the heart. And then K stands for you've got to know your context. You got to know where you are on the journey in that moment. Are you coming off of a win? Have you suffered a loss? Are you sensing that everyone's tired and is trying to recover in that moment? Wherever they are in that context, you've got to know that your story is going to stick following that pattern. Now, there's also something else in a story that you need to realize, that storytelling, you're going to have this preconceived notion that you have to be accurate in telling your story. Accuracy, a lot of times, is what holds us back from telling a story. We'll read a story, we'll find a story we like, and we'll freeze in the moment, and we won't tell it because we won't be confident that we'll recall all the details. Well, the reality is that the person isn't listening for the details. In fact, they've done studies that have proven that when a person listens to a story, they're not really listening to every word you're saying. They're listening and trying to find and discover the key point that you're trying to make. And they hone in on that point. So your story must stick. It must shape the attitude. It must teach a takeaway. It must influence their attention. It must connect with their heart. And it must know the context. All of those things and more are resources that I want to help you with. So if you haven't already done so, go into the description section and sign up for my email. I've also added another opportunity where you can sign up for a 30-minute free consultation with me. And if you haven't already done so, like this video and join this channel. Because I believe that character is your advantage. And I want to be your guide to help you develop and guide your player toward their character advantage.